Escaping the prison may be rare, but escaping the prison 3 times and eluding capture using different methods, it is only done by the cleverest criminals. In 1988, the police in Minot, North Dakota slapped the cuffs on Richard Lee McNair after he murdered one man and shooted another 4 times during a botched robbery. They believed that they had been relieved, but the problems with this criminal were just the beginning of escaping the prison.
Before we start, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell to turn on notifications.
Richard Lee McNair is a convicted murderer who was born on December 19, 1958. He is known for his ability to escape prison and elude capture using different methods. This man has been called one of the most brilliant escape artists in history, because he successfully escaped the authorities 3 times from different institutions. On his first attempt, he used lip balm to squeeze out of handcuffs. The second time was by crawling through a ventilation duct. In his last escape, which made him famous and one of the most 15 wanted lists by the United States Marshal Service, he mailed himself out of prison in a box and convinced the policeman that he was just a jogger and not a prison escapee. This man we are talking about has been called one of the most prison escape artists in history, and you will understand why. In 1987, Richard Lee made a bad choice when he was carrying out a burglary. He was surprised by 2 men who came across him. He murdered one and shot the other 4 times, so that he was sentenced to 3 life sentences for murder attempt, murder and burglary in North Dakota. But McNair's first attempt came shortly after his quick arrest. When he was left in an interrogation room for questioning with 3 detectives, he was looking at a life sentence, and the cops seemed relieved. But as you know, things didn't go exactly as planned. McNair used lip balm which he had in his pocket to slide his way out of his handcuffs and managed to get out of the room and out of the police station, chased up by the cops into a 3-story building in an effort to evade capture. By that time, there were a lot of cops surrounding the building. Then McNair made another bad choice when he decided not to come out with his hands up. He jumped from a 3rd-floor window onto a tree branch to escape, but the branch broke and McNair landed on the ground and hurt his back. Then the cops could make an easier arrest. After McNair was released from the hospital, he was moved to the Ward County Jail in Minot, where he seemed that he wasn't pleased with his new home. He tried to escape again, but he failed when the guards discovered his attempt when they found out that he chiseled a couple of cinder blocks in his cell while moving him to another cell. Well, so far until now we have 1 escape and 1 failed attempted escape, but still there are other escapes including the one which made him famous. After a few years in the prison of North Dakota State, McNair and other 2 guys decided to escape the prison again in October 1992. McNair escaped with 2 other prisoners by crawling through a ventilation duct, but the 2 other guys didn't make it, because one of them recaptured within a few hours and the other within days. McNair, as it was described the cleverest prison escape artist, he could make it because he changed his look. He grew up his hair and dyed it blonde in an attempt to disguise himself while he was roaming in the United States in stolen cars for 10 months, before he was eventually captured in Grand Island, Nebraska in 1993. After his second recapture, he was transformed to the Minnesota Correctional Facility, which is known as the place of Level 5 maximum security prison, which houses the worst criminals with a history of violence, murderers and people like McNair, and no one has ever escaped from the prison because the prisoners are locked down in rooms. He stayed there for several years until they believed that he would not be able to escape, but he was only playing the system and moving from a prison to another, until he was arranged to be transferred to the United States Penitentiary, Pollock, Louisiana, which is a high-security federal prison, and it is closer to his parents in Oklahoma. McNair got a job in the prison as a torn mail bag fixer, which they sent back to the post office to be used again. During his job, he was planning for another escape, which is the final escape that made him famous and the cleverest escapee artist. McNair was 50 years old and felt that he spent his debts in prison and lost his adult life behind bars because of a stupid choice of robbing a grain facility. On April 5, 2006, McNair Richard Lee escaped the prison, and that was the 3rd escape from custody since he was convicted in 1988. He managed to hide inside of a constructed escape pod that includes a tube to breathe through, which was covered with mail bags and placed on a pallet that was moved to a storage facility out of the prison. After the prison staff delivered McNair's pallets and went for lunch, McNair felt he was alone, then he cut himself out of the escape pod and knew that he had around 5 hours before the prison staff would be aware of his disappearance. So he had to run for his life toward the nearest town to get supplies and steal a car. Hours after McNair's escape from Pollock, he was running, then he was stopped on a railroad track in Ball, Louisiana, by a police officer named Carl Borland, who suspected McNair as the one who escaped the prison because he matched the escaped prisoner profile. The police officer asked McNair for identification, but McNair replies that he has no identification and he was just joking and doing exercise. He was also asked about his address and he said that he was staying at a nearby hotel with his brother. McNair successfully convinced Borland that he was jogging and he is in town to help on a roofing project. Then he continued giving the officer Borland fake information including his name, which he said Robert Johnson, and after 5 minutes when he was asked again about his name, he said Jimmy Jones. But the police officer Borland didn't pick up on this. McNair was so calm and appeared collected. The cop sounds apologetic for harassing the jogger, and in the end he laughed and joked with McNair and then he allowed him to go back to jog. McNair was really annoying the authorities and made them unhappy. He actually sent the warden of his former prison a greetings card and embarrassed him, so that the United States Marshal put him on their 15 most wanted list on April 13, 2006. And they noted that McNair was the first prisoner to escape from a federal prison since 1991. His story appeared on a TV series, America's Most Wanted. On April 28, 2006, according to RCMP, a police officer said that he confronted a man in a stolen car, and the man matched McNair's descriptions. He spoke to him for a moment before McNair ran away and eluded capture. McNair was really pretty good at running. After 2 days, the cops realized that the car thief was the guy that appeared on America's Most Wanted. When the authorities examined the car, they found McNair fingerprints and the digital camera with photos he had taken and other portrait photos for making fake IDs. A few days had passed and McNair was a fugitive who still stole cars and motorbikes to cross back to the United States and drove across a few states before he went back to Canada to cross all the way from southern Ontario to West Vancouver. Then McNair decided to buy a property to settle down in British Columbia, in a place called Willison Lake. But he thought that the place was insecure because there was only one road in and out of property. I know you are wondering about how McNair managed to get the money to buy a property and survive on. As you know, McNair used to steal a lot of cars, so that he became a professional. Also, he once worked as a car salesman. He used his experience to steal brand new cars, especially the ones with no GPS, and used them for a short period of time, then he sold them. Besides, he stole vehicles from car dealerships because he knew how to find cash, keys, and avoid security. McNair became so famous, and he'd later say that he was surprised that he had become so famous. And this was a problem for him, since everyone who owned a TV knew him in North America, so that he changed his appearance and he acquired the ability to falsify driver licenses, passports, and identity cards using computer technologies. On October 24, 2007, a policeman named Dan Melanson noticed an expensive-looking white cube van car that seemed to have homemade tinted rear windows. The cop suspected that the car was stolen, so that he took the plate number and called it in. The next day, a young beginner cop named Stefan Gagnon spotted McNair's van by chance in the downtown and pursued it until the van was cornered and McNair took off on foot and chased by the young cop who captured him. The cop was later given an award, and he mentioned that when he captured McNair, he laughed with him. Also, when an officer asked McNair about the reward which was on his capture, McNair replied $25,000. The officer said that's not much, and McNair replied that because all the government money tied up in Osama bin Laden's reward. McNair later mentioned that RCMP were good men doing their job. McNair was the most prison escapee artist who made a bad choice and burgled a grain storage facility in a town and shooted 2 men. But the irony is that McNair wasn't unemployed. He had a job as a sergeant at the Minot Air Force Base. McNair's brother mentioned that McNair just made some bad decisions, but he is the smartest he ever met. McNair mentioned in a tweet that he is looking forward to meeting El Chapo to share breakout stories. El Chapo is the most notorious drug lord and prison escapee. We already made a video on our channel about the drug baron El Chapo that you can find in the description.